Good morning, my name's Neil Burchell and I'm going to be presenting to you about trading in retail and performing better. I'm presenting on behalf of the Trade Development Programme, which is run by Menter Busnes, Category Insight and 0 to 5 from Cardiff Met University. What I'm going to be covering today is starting out with major retailers, how you start to get into major retailers, then some of the differences between regional listings and national, and then following on from that, growing in the major multiples. So starting out with the major retailers, or any retailers really, is to understand what it is that the buyers are looking for. So to start off with, you need to be able to demonstrate that you understand the category in which you're working, that you really know how it ticks, you really know what's going well, what's going badly, what flavors work, what sizes work, and also understand what your competitors are up to. Because if your competitors are already doing it really well, you need to find a way to get around them. Secondly, I think you need to really understand what the retailer is up to, understanding their strategy, understanding their objectives, and where they're going in the marketplace. Because if you've got a premium product, it may not be right to sell it to a discount retailer. You need to make sure you understand what they're doing. Understanding what the retailer's shoppers want as well is very important, because not every shopper shops in every retailer. So making sure that you're aligning your products to the right retailers and to the right shoppers. And we've talked, Sophie talked quite a lot about the value of Welshness and talked about some of those elements that can drive USPs. Having the right USPs for your products, the ones that resonate with consumers, not just the ones that you like, but the ones that really work with consumers are very important, and making sure that those USPs align with market trends. Again, a pricing strategy, it might sound very straightforward, but a number of companies tend to look at their products and say, well, my retail price should be £2.50. The fact that the market as a whole is at £1, it sets them at a huge disadvantage. So again, understanding where your pricing strategy fits and which retailers it fits with, and making sure that the retailers have an attractive margin. Because if the retailer margin normally that they have for your category is 45% and you come along and offer them 30, that's not going to go down particularly well. One of the biggest criticisms from retailers about manufacturers is that they sell their products into us, they sell them in, and then they breathe a sigh of relief and walk away, and they don't put the effort into selling the products off the shelf. Lots of people tend to think that the retailer's job is to sell the product. It's not, it's actually the manufacturer's job. The retailer just provides us with a shop window or an environment. And we as the manufacturers need to be selling the product off the shelf in the retailer. So whether it's through marketing, whether it's through promotions and all sorts of other types of activities, experiential, but we need to be selling those products off the shelf for the retailer. And that's how to build the relationship. And then finally, but most importantly, as a manufacturer going into the mults for the first time, making sure you know what your objectives are and what's your rationale for what you're doing. Being clear what it is you want to achieve, what you want to invest, and what it is you want to get out. So next slide, please. This is just a long checklist of things that we would suggest that you focus on when you're trying to get into the retailers who are starting for the first time. I won't run through them now because I could spend the entire time of the presentation talking about each of them, but these are things that we recommend you really need to look at before you go and approach a retailer for the first time. Next slide, please. Thinking then about whether you go regional or local or national GB, that's an important decision to take. Again, it's if you're a very Welsh brand and your brand has a very strong provenance and a very strong appeal to Welsh consumers, it's probably a good idea to start off trialing your product in the Welsh market, understanding how you go about things before you have to move to a national position. Moving to a GB national position has a lot more complication. The prize is a lot bigger, but the effort and the investment involved will be significantly greater. So the majority of Welsh brands will start off working with the retailers in Wales who have regional programs, and then move into a GB national one after that. Next one, please. So what I'm going to talk about now is a few thoughts and ideas about how manufacturers who are already listed in multiples, what you can do to help grow your business with them. So next one, please. First thing is to have really good quality, high quality account management. So managing your customers well, managing that relationship between you, the supplier, and your retailer. There's some things which are very, very obvious, but they're worth repeating. The salesperson, the sales account manager needs to have clear targets for each customer and the customer they're working with. What is it I'm trying to achieve? What is it I can afford to invest, and where am I going with it? Clearly, the sales manager needs to be forecasting what's happening, forecasting sales, and building plans. I think also for an account manager to be very successful, they do need to be profit responsible and not just volume responsible. Many times you see that the account manager is given a volume target for a customer, but not a profit target. And making sure they have a profit target isn't likely to risk that they will try and sell all that they will reduce your profit, but they will work to your profit. And if they understand the profit goal, it will enable them to be more focused in how they deliver that. We've talked a bit about you need to demonstrate your knowledge of the industry and the category and the competition. And again, your customer will expect you to know that. And I think it's also important that the salesperson is very realistic about what a company can and can't achieve. If you can't afford to spend £1 million on TV advertising, then the sales manager needs to know that and not try and aspire and dream to that type of support program. It's important that the sales manager really understands what a company can and can't do. But I think it's also very, very important that a sales manager will have regular and meaningful contact with the customer. I know this sounds obvious, but they need to find reasons for contacting the customer, giving them support, giving them advice, giving them information. If you as a company have done something well, you've done a big sampling program, yes, the retailer should be told about it beforehand, but tell them afterwards how well you've done and what's been achieved. And by giving them sensible and impartial information, you can become a trusted partner with them, and that again will help build your relationship and help you grow in the future. Within each retailer, there is going to be a very wide network of contacts. There will be supply chain people, merchandising, quality, finance people, and for the sales manager to build a relationship with all of those will be very helpful, because when something goes wrong, which it inevitably will do, if you've got good contacts with the rest of that, with a network within that retailer, they can help you, they can support you. And if you do that and you work across the departments, both in your own and other companies, you'll build a strong relationship. And ultimately, you take full responsibility for that customer and you own that customer within your organization, and you then work very hard to grow your business with that customer. So next slide, please. Creating a joint business plan. Lots of retailers will expect you to have a JBP, a joint business plan with them, but at the outset, they may well not. So for you to propose a joint business plan with them will be very strong. But again, this needs to be a win-win program, so it's achieving your objectives and the objectives of the retailer. So discussing with the retailer, what is it they want to get out of your product, where they expect you to go, what they expect you to do. You can build with them, and so you can build towards turnover targets, you can look towards range expansion and extension, you can build in promotions, you can work with them on their media, on their point of sale, but you work with them and you've got this agreed plan. And therefore, if you achieve the plan, you're well set to be able to grow further with them into the future. And by having a plan, you should be able to get access to their own data, some of their customer data as well, which will enable you to be able to plan better and grow further. So next slide, please. In terms of your product and your packaging and your branding, we do see that a lot of companies launch, and they launch with great products and great packaging, and they go really well. But then 5 years later, they're got the same formulations, they've still got the same packaging, they're doing everything the same. And you do need to keep things fresh. You need to be looking as to how you slightly amend your packaging every couple of years, how you improve it, how you keep it being relevant to your consumers. Taking your packaging into store, standing alongside the shelf with your own brand, saying, how does this fit in with the competition? How does this look? That's a great way of understanding how you fit, but keeping things moving. You need to also innovate, not just innovate in your product or your packaging, but in the way you do things. Look for new ways of doing things, and don't be afraid to fail. Procter & Gamble came out a couple of years ago and said, we've got a new company culture now, and we're not afraid to fail, because up to then, they had been terrified of failure, and they researched the heck out of everything before they did it, and they didn't innovate. Subsequently, they've come up, they've taken a more bold, more pragmatic, more entrepreneurial approach, and it's paying dividends for them. So all of that's important, but I think the other thing that's hugely important, and we saw this in the film at the beginning of this session, which is about sustainability. There's going to be the climate conference in November in Glasgow, and that's really going to push further the whole subject of sustainability in the UK. And I think whilst it's not so high on the buyers' agendas at the moment, come the new year, it will be very important. So if you're able to have sustainability in your business model, if you're able to have environmental packaging, you've got great practices, that will stand you in great stead. So just as a final there, delight and wow both your customer, your retailer, your consumer. So next one, please. Engaging with your consumer is also vital in terms of growing your brand. Ensuring you know who they are, what they purchase, why they purchase, learning everything about them is going to be really helpful to you in order to help you build the right programs to be able to support the growth of your brand going forward. So once you know who they are and what they do and why they do it, you can then work out how you want to grow awareness with this group of customers, how you can work with them to generate trial, and then ultimately how you build loyalty, how you keep them loyal to your brand. And this is all about keeping your packaging fresh. It's about in-store activity, it's promotions, it's social media, the whole marketing mix. But it's fundamental to this is really understanding who your consumer is and why they do what they do. So next slide, please. And again, the way to do all of this is through insight. We are so fortunate in Wales that we have access to so much information and data, whether it's through the Insight program or the clusters or the other programs like the trade engagement program. There's a lot of data, a lot of information available to you, and you can take this information, you can analyze it, and you can use it to really help you understand where you can be moving your business, where you can be attacking your competition, where you can be defending your own position. But also within each retailer, you take someone like Tesco, if you really want to grow with Tesco, you need a channel strategy for each of their individual sections of their business. So for example, if you're selling milk to Tesco, their convenience stores aren't necessarily going to be particularly interested in a 6-pint bottle of milk for convenience. But the superstores and online especially will be particularly interested in it. So again, when you're talking about ranging, when you're talking about product style and promotions, it's a different section for each channel within that retailer. And Sophie talked about this during her presentation, but it's all about demonstrating to the retailer how you can drive additional revenue, additional profit. And if you back that up with data and analysis, that's really the road to success. Next one, please. Online, Kathy talked about online at the beginning and how important that is. I believe we're almost at a stage now where online is about 15% of grocery, but it's really interesting to see how it's developing very fast, but we also need to develop very fast ourselves. This great word taxonomy, the classification, making sure that every description, every picture, every element of the retailer's website reflects the right, reflects our products the way we want them to be reflected, and that they've classified them right. We do a lot of work in the trade program with Ocado. I was looking at the Ocado website a couple of months ago, and somehow they had managed to slot one of the Penderyn malt whiskies into the soft drinks area. who knows how they managed to do that? But clearly for both Penderyn and for Ocado, that's not a good move, and it would depress sales on that product. So just by checking and making sure that everything is the way it should be is vital to getting things right. And then understanding how your shoppers purchase. Are they purchasing through tablet? Are they purchasing through their phone? All of those are going to determine how you market yourself with these individual retailers. And then your investment program as well, whether you're investing in banners and recipes and blogs, tie up with third parties, star reviews, all of these types of things. But ultimately, your job is to make it easier for the consumer and more profitable for your retailer. So I've whizzed through an awful lot here, and so it's a whistle-stop tour of a few ideas, but ultimately what I'm talking about is you can improve your account management, build a strong JBP, make sure your product is always relevant, is always great. If you're understanding who your consumer are and you're engaging with them, you're looking at the opportunities and you're taking as they come along, and you're growing online and backing all this up with validation from insight, there are some ways that you can grow your business with the existing retailers. And I think that's it. So thank you.